Welcome to the News and Views podcast by the Fintech Times. Established in 2016, the Fintech Times is a global multimedia news outlet centered around the world's first leading fintech newspaper. We report on the latest and brightest ideas from the fintech world. Follow the conversation using hashtag TFT News and Views and follow us at the Fintech Times.
Hi, I'm Polly Jean Harrison, features editor at the Fintech Times.
Hi, I'm Francis Bignell and I'm a journalist at the Fintech Times.
Hi, I'm Tyler Smith and I'm a journalist at the Fintech Times.
Hello, and welcome back once again to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast. We are here once again to talk all about fintech. Tyler, Francis, how are you guys doing? I missed out on last week's, but how's it been? How's life in the fintech world?
Oh, Polly, you're back. It's great to see you again and to be back again for another week. Of course, it's just been another hectic, busy week at the Fintech Times, but we've had fun, we've learned a lot, and we're here to share it all today. So very happy.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Welcome back, Polly. We missed you. We were lost without you. Tyler and I, we were a shambles. It was but alas, here we are. As Tyler said, it's been a really good week, and I'm looking forward to the podcast today.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, guys, for saying so. But you guys did fine without me. But we have an extra special, exciting surprise today, and that we are not alone, and we are in fact joined by Claire. Claire, hello. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the chaos. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. Well, I've just realised it's actually probably about this time last year that I joined the editorial team. So this feels like a fitting anniversary that I'm joining the podcast for the first time.
Gosh, it feels like you've been here forever, Claire. Well, why don't you give our listeners a bit of a rundown as to who you are and why you're here today?
Yes, I'm Claire Woffenden, the editor of the newspaper and the website, and I work with you guys to produce excellent reading material in both the magazine and the website. And yeah, I'm really excited that I've finally made my debut in the podcast today.
Yes, we've been threatening it for a while, so I'm super happy that you're here. We've got some really exciting things to talk about today. Claire, I believe you've brought an article that you're going to discuss. Why don't you give us a very brief just rundown as to what we can expect from you?
Yes, so I don't know if this breaks the rule, but I chose my own article. Not because, I wanted to blow my own trumpet, but it's basically what I learned about the Centre for Finance, Innovation and Technology, which launched at an event this week in Leeds. And because I obviously am based up here in Yorkshire, it was great that I was able to go along to it.
Amazing stuff. And then, Francis, you're going to be doing our piece this week. So why don't you just take it away?
Yeah, I was going to say, Claire, don't worry about that because I'm also doing a piece that I worked on this week. So it's all good. But the focus of my article this week is on open banking, and it follows a big announcement from the OBIE, which recently announced that the open banking uptake and the active users in the UK had recently reached a new milestone in 7 million users. So round of applause for everyone using open banking. It's a great thing to see. But really what I wanted to discuss this week was this article from YouGov and Go Cardless, which was, according to a survey that they did, businesses and consumers alike are ready to embrace open banking. And I'm sure you can see now why I wanted to pick this article, because it's very fitting with the OBIE's announcement. So what made this article so interesting? What were the stats from it? Well, it found that 29% of UK consumers said they are likely to try open banking powered variable recurring payments, VRPs, as they become more widely available. So for just our listeners who might not know what a VRP is, a VRP enables a consumer to give permission to a third-party provider to make a series of payments from their bank account at variable amounts and intervals with only one strong customer authentication step when setting it up. So some more stats from the article found that 1 in 3 or 33% of UK financial decision makers stated they are likely to use VRPs in the future, with a further 23% of those citing convenience as their top reason for trying. There are a few more stats from this article, but I don't want to just sort of overload you guys with stats, sort of just like stat. So I'll leave that for our listeners if they want to follow up on the article. We will include a link in it in our summary. But the article further highlights reasons consumers may want to try using open banking. And like I mentioned earlier, interestingly, the findings come soon after the Open Banking Implementation Entity, or OBIE, the governing open banking body in the UK, revealed the tech had reached a new milestone. And we recently reached out to the industry to find out why this was such an impressive milestone and how we might continue to see open banking continue to grow. So I think the best way to sort of go about it was to sort of talk about what the industry said and see if you guys agree, or see if they really missed anything. So we heard from Richard Callas, the Client Solutions Director at GFT, and what he seemed to suggest was that financial anxiety was a massive catalyst in open banking's growth, because so many people have struggled with their finances since the pandemic really began. People have been sort of almost desperate to find new ways to really save. And I mean, open banking is as good a reason as any to sort of provide an alternative payment method. And so that is one reason that people have started to use it more, and perhaps why we've seen this increase in the milestone. Another thing that was found is that more education is needed in order for open banking to continue to grow. Why? Because there's security concerns as well. This is what Leon Mewis, I believe his name was, the CBO at Yolt, and Tom Voaden, the head of partnerships at Bridge, seem to suggest is that a mixture of education and improving security, or just making people more aware of security, because the idea of open banking, you know, allowing a third party to sort of access your bank account, it just seems a little bit iffy. For those who are unaware, you can understand why they might be concerned. So the more security, you know, measures that are made clear and the more education that is provided, people will become more open to the idea of using open banking and see the time saving and sort of the revolutionary tech that it is. But I think I've been talking for a while. I want to throw it to you guys. After all, we have a guest. We want to make sure everyone gets a say. So I guess, Claire, as our guest, do you have any sort of thoughts on open banking? Any sort of reasons that you think that the tech has grown so much, or any sort of anything that you think might sort of see its adoption grow even?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in general, payments don't really have a history of moving at a rate of knots. We've had checks and cards for so long, and then really in the last few years, it has accelerated. And I think it's like what you touched on, it's the fact that it's opening countless opportunities for consumers to better manage their financial lives. It means that, you know, people don't have to kind of wait several days for payments. They can have things processed either immediately, the same day, or the next day. So yeah, I think open banking in general has just opened more opportunities for people to improve their financial well-being, and also knowledge as well. I think because there's been quite a good kind of talk around what open banking is, people tend to understand it more than they probably ever used to do with finance. So yeah, it's a good thing.
No, definitely. And I guess as well, this idea of open finance as well. Open banking came first, and people, as you mentioned, are starting to sort of understand it a little bit, what it means. And then the next step of open finance and really just expanding this technology and its use cases, it can really only be a good thing. And I think that, you know, as time goes on, we will continue to see more innovation in the space. And it's like what we always sort of harp on about here, is that there's never enough options, really. And I think the more options that are made readily available to everyone, I think that can only be a good thing. Polly, as you've come back after a week's hiatus, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Claire said. You know, open banking is great. I love open banking, and it really, you know, I think we can all agree open banking really did change things when it comes to financial services within the UK, right? And also that the UK are very much leading the way in the space and using open banking, and having, you know, better, safer banking experiences for consumers to able to, you know, manage their finances in a way that works for them, and as well to try and make things more affordable as well. Surely that can only be a good thing, you know, just echoing really what Claire said. And I think it's exciting to see, like you were saying, Francis, about what's coming next. So obviously we've got open finance, we spoke briefly on just then, but VRPs as well, variable recurring payments, as you're saying at the beginning, they are very much sort of at the forefront and what everyone's talking about at the moment, and kind of that next frontier. And this idea of sort of automation and flexibility can really help when we think about sort of the personalization of services, which again, personalization is one of those huge keywords at the moment of how to make banking and finances better, make it more personalized and make it more tailored. So I think it's just brilliant, and it's just become such a crucial part of the financial system, I think, and especially for consumers, there's just so much benefit in it. And even if necessarily they don't know what's going on, you know, I think open banking is still a bit of a mystery to a lot of consumers, and that not many people may have heard of it. And I don't necessarily think, you know, they need to have heard of it. It's just in the background, working away, doing its little thing, making things a little bit easier for everyone. And I think that's just brilliant, and hopefully long may it continue.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, Polly. It really is going to be an interesting space to see how it develops. And I mean, I, like you, am very much looking forward to it. And I guess what we haven't really discussed is, do any of us use open banking? Tyler, I want to bring you into the conversation. What are your thoughts, or do you use open banking at all?
I think this is a really, really great article, and I think open banking is doing extremely well in the UK, as evident by the articles. Do I personally use open banking? There are a few times that I've used it. When you do like self-assessment on HMRC, they've got a really great example of using open banking for that. Where I can't remember who it was. I think it was Go Cardless that said the best open banking examples are almost invisible. But that would be the only example that I could think of for myself. Quite recently, we have had a very few good examples crop up. It was only last week that the debt management app Superfi partnered with TrueLayer, the open banking platform, to implement VRPs across debt repayments, which is really, really cool. And it was like able to allow people to make payments on time, to manage when their payments and how much they made, which I thought was really, really cool. TrueLayer also had like a really similar partnership earlier last month with a similar credit management app called Incredible for exactly the same technology, VRPs, used in very much the same way. So I think it's really good, and I think as we see these sort of use cases come forward, I think it won't become prevalent. It'll just become almost expected, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I think what I really loved there about what you said was this idea of, the best examples are invisible. You don't realize they're being used. And I think that is really something that we're going to continue to see. I mean, that's like the idea of embedded finance, right? It's there, it's embedded in the system, and you just don't seem to really notice it. And I think that is going to be the way going forward, that we are going to see the best financial products come, and sort of what will give the best consumer experience, because it almost takes the weight of them having to worry about using these different services or understanding the technology. They don't have to, it's just there. But I think that was a really, really good discussion, and I'm really happy to have gathered your thoughts on it. But now I want to, again, go over to our guest. Claire, what article did you bring to the table today?
Yes, I was just going to say before we had that, we've talked just then a lot about consumers, but we haven't also talked about how the impact on kind of fintechs themselves, with open banking, the speed of APIs and the way it's speeded everything up means that they're able to offer better services because it's less burden on them to have all the kind of manual, timely processes. So just echoing Polly, we love open banking. But yeah, moving on. Like I mentioned, I went to it was an event in Leeds that was the launch of the Centre for Finance, Innovation and Technology. But I'm going to call that CFIT now because it's otherwise a really big mouthful. Although I think there was a lot of confusion because I saw quite a few articles say that CFIT had launched in Leeds and that it was a new centre in Leeds, which it wasn't. They just chose to have their launch event in Leeds. But it's basically a body that's backed by £5.5 million funding from the Treasury and the City of London Corporation. And its purpose is to help continue, the UK's fantastic fintech growth that we've already seen so far. And the centre was actually established in response to the Ron Khalifa review into UK fintech. And I think it was one of his recommendations to have a body such as this. So it's essentially going to bring together new coalitions of experts from across finance, technology, academia, policymaking, and it's also going to be establishing kind of financial innovation centres or hubs at cities across the UK, including Leeds, Manchester, Bristol, Birmingham. But what was great for me actually was at the event, I managed to speak to Charlotte Croswell, OBE, who is the new chair of CFIT, and she's such an inspirational woman. So we had such a great chat about CFIT's plans to kind of continue the fintech sector's work with universities and really help develop fresh talent. Because obviously we've talked a lot on the Fintech Times about either like a talent shortage or a kind of talent war. And so really, if we got to work with universities and develop fresh talent that way by setting courses and programs that actually benefit, I think that's such a really exciting thing. But yeah, CFIT, I think it's going to be working around the UK, and it's not like a networking body where it'll have events, parties, and bringing people together at a conference. It's pretty much a body that's going to work to identify problems and issues, and then we'll work. Say, for example, one of Charlotte said was, say in Bristol, there's somebody that has a problem that they can't do something. CFIT's going to go, well, actually, there's a fintech in Newcastle that's doing this already. You should talk to them. And it's kind of about connecting people and sharing ideas. So I think I'm quite excited by the launch. And I don't know about you guys, but I kind of tend to think where you live, you tend to be a bit regionalised, especially, say, even the Fintech Times based in London. We kind of tend to focus a bit on that London is the fintech, or that wherever you live is the fintech capital. So it's quite good that they're kind of focusing on spreading it around the UK as well.
No, it was a really awesome thing to read, Claire, and I thank you for bringing it to the podcast today, because I think, like you were just saying, I think it's so important to highlight places that aren't London in the UK, and I know we do a little bit of that at the Fintech Times when we can, but having a focus on places that are moving outside the capital and into all the other hubs that we have, and even just having the launch event in Leeds, I think is fantastic, just to take that completely out of London, even though obviously it's a national thing. And I also really enjoyed reading the plan for the universities and working with universities and students, because I absolutely agree. I think that's so exciting. And that's really just the way to keep things going and keep things pushing along, and just to really foster that talent right from the off. And I think that's just going to be absolutely game changing, really. And so I think, yeah, it's a really exciting thing to happen. And I'm so glad that you managed to go and speak to Charlotte as well, because she's wonderful, and just like you say, such an inspiration to everyone. But I mean, boys, did you have anything to add, Francis?
Yeah, I did, and I found the most interesting point similar to you there, Polly. I think what I really like, the best takeaway, in my opinion, was this idea of working with universities to drive growth. Because I mean, it's like Claire mentioned, we always see these things about there's a fintech talent shortage, and that people just, there isn't enough good talent about, essentially, and that, as a result, fintechs are suffering. But I think a lot of that might be just because of the misconception that there is surrounding fintech, and it is this confusing market that it's just for those who are already in the know, and if you're not, it might ostracize you a bit, and you're not going to be able to get into it. But I think having this sort of accessible way to enter the market for students, sort of who are still deciding what they want to do, who might sort of see fintech and go, actually, I think this is something that I could really see myself getting involved with, developing my skills.
Oh, well, I think this is really, really fantastic. And everything we've touched upon in this conversation so far, I completely agree that it can be a bit London-esque sometimes, the fintech scene, and especially our coverage. It's really resonated with me with, of course, the launch of the Estonian bank, LHV. They opened an office in Leeds. I know this isn't really they didn't launch in Leeds, they just had the event there. But when I saw Leeds, I was like, oh, I hope LHV were there.
They were.
They were there.
Yes.
I'll tell them I said hi. But yeah, I think the thing is in the UK you have lots of really like blossoming fintech ecosystems in Bristol. You have lots in Manchester, lots up north, as Claire was saying. And I think this sort of like initiative shows that this connectivity really does have a benefit, and just sort of like putting one hand in the other, I think, is really, really fantastic. It reminded me on another topic of the formation of the Open Wallet Foundation, which was driven by the Linux Foundation last month. And that sort of like brought together a load of different tools to build digital wallets, which I know is a bit of an off-topic comment, but it just like, yeah, I think people are really realizing that, you can't do it alone. A problem shared is a problem half, they say. So yeah, this is really fantastic, and I hope this consolidation will do more to position the UK in the world stage as like a whole country, and not just as its major city. So yeah, round of applause for them.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Claire, for bringing that article to us. That was a really interesting discussion. 2 great discussions. So if you want to hear more about anything we've talked about today or anything else about the fintech world, head on over to the Fintech Times website, where you can read plenty more news and insights all about the wonderful world of fintech. But this week, with our special guest, we have a new exciting thing that's just about to happen, which is, of course, the quick fire question round. fanfare, drum roll, air horns, whatever you'd like, insert noise here. So Claire, we are going to grill you with some quickfire questions. Some of them are about fintech, some of them aren't. You'll get to see shortly. And again, we're not going to put a timer on, but just answer as fast as quickly as possible. So Claire, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Amazing. So without further ado, here is the news and views quickfire question round. Question number 1. If you had one way to make a payment for the rest of your life, which way would you choose?
Oh, I know everyone uses their phone these days or their watches, but I still like my little card and use it in the shops. I don't know why. I think it's somehow that I know that I'm paying for something. But yeah, probably I would use my phone a lot more because it is a lot more convenient.
Claire, you're stuck on a deserted island. What 3 items are you taking with you?
I presume by items I can't take people, which is fine. I don't mind being on my own, but you would have to have some kind of device, kind of whether it's to listen or watch something. Or perhaps I wouldn't actually. Maybe I'd enjoy being off the grid. I wouldn't mind having some listening device, whether it was to listen to music or to podcasts such as this brilliant one that I do every week. What do people take on desert islands? I have no idea.
You definitely want like flip-flops or something, wouldn't you? Because you never know what's...
That's very practical.
Do you know what I mean? Rubbish on the beach.
Well, yes, I probably would like to take some flip-flops or clothing as well, just in case, some pirate ship comes by. You don't want to be caught short. And maybe a bottle of rum in tribute to Jack Sparrow.
We respect that. Back in the fintech world, what part of fintech should we have left behind in 2022?
Probably something that I dislike in general with technology is confusing acronyms and bewildering terms for things where people could just say it a lot simpler. So I would banish the acronym forever.
So Claire, the most important question you'll answer today, are you a dog or a cat person?
I am very well aware I'm on a call with people with dogs. However, that would be my answer anyway, because I'm not really a cat person at all. I just don't trust cats.
That was the correct answer.
That is the correct response.
You have a
You can't
conversation
trust
with a
cats.
cat and you're just waiting for it to just scratch you.
Would have had to kick you off the podcast otherwise.
Next question, Claire. When was the last time you used cash?
Today, I went to the hairdresser, and while I paid with card, I still like to give cash as a tip for their tip box.
I can't remember the last time I used cash. I think ever.
I've got a £1 coin in my pocket, but that's about the extent of it.
So, next question. What's been your favourite thing you've ever reported on?
Oh, there was many years ago, I went to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, and it was my first ever press trip. And my first person that I had to ask questions to was Pamela Anderson, because randomly she was at the show and she was launching, or she wasn't launching, she was kind of the face of TiVo, which I don't know if you'll ever remember this. It was like where you like Sky now, you pause live TV, and it was very exciting at the time. And she was great because we'd asked her and she was like, I love TiVo. And then afterwards she said, I don't know how this works. I don't even watch TV, which I thought was really funny. But I wrote about Pamela Anderson in TiVo Shocker, and it was just one of my favourite stories still.
I love that. That's brilliant. So Claire, have you ever owned or paid for something with cryptocurrency?
So I know I've talked about it with you guys before, that with crypto, I did kind of go through this, right, I should be doing this, and I joined eToro, got some cryptocurrency, was going to start buying shares and doing it that way. And I realised that I'm still a bit kind of nervous when it comes to things like that. So I haven't actually probably purchased anything with it. I think I just sold it back when it reached a high. And then as soon as it started going lower, I was like, I'll just get rid of it now. So maybe I'm still a bit of a Luddite.
That is my exact experience with crypto also. Like I invested like £5 in it and then got my fiver back a couple of weeks later.
It still counts.
If we're going off advice, Tyler and I can say just throw all your money into it and then hope for the best. That's the way that we did our crypto experience. So
yeah, this
is not financial advice for all our listeners. Do not do that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, our final question in the quickfire round, Claire, is what should we see more of in the fintech industry?
I think, like touching on the CFIT conversation, more collaboration, more recognising that you don't have to do everything on your own. You can find other people that are doing things just as well and work together on it.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to tie everything together, I think. I like that response.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Claire, for that quick fire round that wasn't super quick at all. But we do have one final question for you before we go on to our very last segment of the podcast, which is there anything interesting that you've learned about the fintech industry recently that you'd like to share? A little fun fact or nugget of information or a statistic that you've sort of come across and thought, that's pretty exciting.
Yes, this week as you well know, on a Friday, we now have the Friday Fix, which is our new weekly roundup of special kind of deals and products and services that have been launched. And this week I noticed Dogs Trust, which is one of the UK's largest animal welfare charities, has launched a debit card in partnership with Currency, and it lets supporters donate to the charity whenever they spend in the UK or abroad. Obviously, Currency have worked with other charities before, and I think it's their Powered By programme, which allows charities to increase. It's just another way, basically, to... People don't really think they have much disposable income at the moment, but if they're able to kind of they buy something with their card and it's rounded up to the nearest 50p or £1 and goes towards the charity. I think it's just a nice way of helping support your charity, but not going too crazy when you don't have much spare income at the moment.
Amazing. That's a really good one. Thank you for that, Claire.
And I liked that I tied in with the dog theme as well.
It's funny you mentioned the dog thing because that might come up again in a little bit as we go into what I learned this week, which, Claire, that leads really nicely onto. So each week, obviously, we like to share a little bit of info or things that we learned about the fintech industry every week. But Francis, what have you learned this week?
So this week we are delving back into Latin America, as we all know. Sort of mild stomping ground, well, it's not for lack of a better term, really. It's just the way that I like to look at it. As a Brazilian, in case anyone didn't know, I am Brazilian. Something that I love to share. So Belvo, the main open finance data and payments platform in Latin America, has launched a payment initiation solution under the scope of the regulated open finance in Brazil. As a central bank regulated entity, it aims to improve the PixPay payment platform in Brazil. With this open finance payment solution, users can initiate Pix payments directly inside third-party environments with less friction than traditional Pix methods, such as QR codes or Pix copy and paste. And these improvements ensure improved conversion rates and optimized user experience and fraud risk reduction. And those are three things we always love to hear.
Amazing stuff. Awesome. And Tyler, what have you learned this week?
Thanks, Polly. Well, this week I was writing an article about the Indian aggregator PayU, and they're going to start introducing 3DS2 on all their domestic and international payments. This is in relation, what I learned from this is that actually 3DS, which is like three domain security, which is where you have to like authenticate an online payment. That was first introduced in 1999 by Visa. And of course, there was only like desktop computers, that was the fintech. But now with the advent of like the smartphone and the digital watches and everything, 3DS2 is an update that seeks to like include all of the other devices, which I feel like I should have known because it came into force in 2020. But yeah, that was my takeaway from this week. My only takeaway from this week. What about you, Polly?
Thank you, Tyler. Well, mine is a little bit of a cheat, and you'll understand what I was saying about dogs before, because I've been on holiday this week, so I've learned very little. But what I have learned is that there is a company called PayPugs, which is just absolutely adorable, and they have this adorable little pug as a mascot. And as I own a pug, this pleases me greatly. So this is what I've learned this week: the existence of a pug, a very tenuously pug-related fintech company. But anyway, thank you so much, guys, for sharing that. And once again, thank you to Claire for joining us this week. I hope you've had a good time and it's not been too scary for you. Not scary, that's the wrong word. But yeah, I think that brings us nicely to a close, really. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me once again to talk about fintech. Thank you so much to Claire for coming on, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Brilliant. See you guys next week.
It's been great, guys, and thank you for joining us, Claire. See you next week.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the News and Views podcast by the Fintech Times. Don't miss next week's episode and continue the conversations using hashtag TFT News and Views and follow us at the Fintech Times.